China weighs in with a 64% drop in Model 3 sales in April. And there seems to be some panic regarding this in terms of the stock price. But in our minds, this is a planned obsolescence by Tesla. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters for charts, extra videos, as well as daily information on investing and trading in Tesla. Please join us on Patreon. We also want to encourage you to like, and subscribe. So, one of the variables impacting Tesla stock price today, which is the 11th of May 2021, was this whole issue of, it was reported in China that Model 3 sales had fallen quite dramatically. So I believe that the narrative that impacted the stock in this fashion sort of ran that, there are 3 new Chinese companies that have opened up and started selling, or have started selling, or soon to start selling electric vehicles, and therefore Tesla might be in trouble. So, it sounds logical step by step, but there are a few issues with that narrative. The first issue is, as you know, Tesla, after 3 years of ownership in China, is running at in the range of 70% of value, definitely in year 1. I think by the time we get to year 3, it's very close to that, like 60% of the original value of the company. One of the things going on with Chinese consumers is that when it comes to Tesla, after 3 years of ownership of Chinese vehicles, you're down to the 25% value, and in 1 year, you're down 50% in value for those vehicles. So there's a lot of brand awareness, recognition, and appreciation from Chinese consumers that Tesla is a beneficiary of. The second thing that comes to mind here is just the fact that we've actually been tracking with physical counts, which we try to include once or twice a month in our shows, as well as with feedback that we get from owners in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, about what they're seeing on the lot. So right now in the United States, if you pick a lot to go to for Tesla, and then you start figuring out what the combination of vehicles are, most of the lots we go to the United States, we're seeing like 80-85% Model Ys being sold. So one of the arguments you could actually make is that there's an extreme situation happening where in the United States as well, Model 3 sales are actually down because everybody's buying Model Ys instead, and Tesla simply transitions to the new vehicle. So I think that it's entirely possible, but the numbers have fallen to the degree that they've said. But the challenge, though, is not that, Tesla doesn't just build the cars and have them sitting there. It really tries to focus on a just-in-time inventory process. So as we transition to Model Ys as the predominantly sold vehicle, I think statistics like this are going to pop up. Frankly, the China numbers seem a little bit off, actually, in terms of the severity of decline of number of Model 3s being sold, because in the United States, like we said, we're above 75%, heading for 80% Model Ys currently. So in theory, because real estate prices are very high in China as well, one would expect that between real estate prices and the size of the average Chinese family, it really forces those families into the SUVs, whether they like it or not. And so not having to drive the Model 3 is actually a huge benefit. So look out, I would say, for more news about Model 3 sales falling, because there's a transition to Y, and the Chinese consumers are very focused on that vehicle because of how it fits their families. One other note on the Model Y there I thought was interesting is the fact that if you look at Xpeng, Neo, etc., all of them chose to introduce SUVs first because of this problem. the tendency to have multi-generations living within one household, and the fact that the Model 3 fits those larger households better in terms of 3 generations in a vehicle. So I would say that it was interesting that there wasn't an effort to determine how many Model Ys sold to replace those Model 3s. Another variable in this whole thing is the fact that there is a pretty strong amount of demand for Tesla vehicles in Europe. And so Tesla has a process where when there was somewhat of a slowdown in China of demand for the Model 3s, they were simply put on a ship and shipped off to Europe and were selling fine. So I just think that Tesla has an embarrassment of riches. They can have their vehicles go in China and sell to Europe or other places around the world that have not been getting a lot of inventory from Tesla. So I guess the next thing to consider is the fact that Tesla is somewhat of a strange company, because companies like Cnbc have a strong interest in finding sort of negative individuals or news about Tesla and very carefully making sure that it's broadcast broadly without considering sort of all the angles. So I think it's actually very poor journalism, but they've been fairly consistent in doing it over the years, combined with people like Barron's, with the Wall Street Journal Group, et cetera. You know, my sense of the whole thing is that, number one, Tesla doesn't spend advertising dollars with those firms. And number two, and more importantly, part of the job of certain firms is to work to help protect the interests of their best clients. So if you look at the line items of the amount of advertising done by GM or Mercedes or some of the other large companies to both entities, you'll find that they actually have a pretty good chunk of money that's annually spent to sort of support those entities. So I really feel like, you know, this is an example of very poor journalism from CNBC, but it's been very consistent. I'm fascinated by, and one of the things we cover a lot is the difference between what people say and actually what's happening. And we actually will make comments, if Elon makes comments that aren't that great either, but one of the giant mysteries hanging over Tesla in China is, well, how are the numbers going to work out? Can Tesla successfully navigate that relationship to get the sales that they think they can? And there are a lot of obstacles being thrown up there, including number of firms, et cetera. I'm amazed because it took Tesla a lot of years to pull their vehicles together and implement. In the case of, I think, XPeng and at least all the new Chinese firms, you're talking companies that have been in business for less than 2 or 3 years and have begun producing vehicles. So I really think that there's a concept called caveat emptor, or buyer beware, where the Chinese consumers are very sophisticated. And there's a reason why Tesla continuously outsells, by 3 or 4 to 1 domestic Chinese competing vehicles. The last incident that sort of blew up in my mind was an incident where once the base Model Y was introduced to China at $42,000, the CEO of NIO was asked about his $56,000 Model Y equivalent SUV, and he informed that they had no intention of matching Tesla's price for that item. NIO has tried to differentiate by offering smaller battery packs or the ability to swap into larger battery packs, etc. And it seemed to be a good idea as a way to sort of generate differentiation and potentially large numbers of sales. But the whole battery swap thing didn't work that great in the United States. And we don't seem to see large numbers of consumers embracing that concept in China either. But they do deserve credit for making an effort to both identify and try to implement differentiation methods that might give them a win. So overall on this issue, I do think it had an impact in terms of the downdrafts of Tesla stock price this morning. I find it strange that with the resources of Cnbc, they don't make an effort to call up analysts and be very careful about disseminating information like this, because they actually get for free access to the best analysts in the world, because those analysts get pub or publication credit and therefore potentially pick up a lot of clients by introducing information that other people don't have that can help with people's decision making. And so I just continue to be amazed at the efforts being made to sort of malign the reputation of Tesla. I'll remind you that there have been a lot of interesting methods to articulate that Tesla is not a good company. And as you may recall, the most fun one I like to watch is a discussion of the parking lots at Tesla and the fact that, there was a Wall Street Journal article about the fact that Tesla's parking lots were fairly disorganized, and that implied that their ability to make cars might be influenced by the lack of organization of their parking spaces. Now, I actually went to those parking spaces recently after doing so a couple of years ago, and it's like night and day. It's a very well-oiled machine in many, many ways, but now that it doesn't seem to attract any reporting from the Wall Street Journal or others in the process. So in general, I just think that I find it strange that there's so much effort by these organizations to deliver stuff that's poor quality journalism and represents an effort to kind of take the company down, and they're not being transparent about their true motives, and I think that's unfortunate. So we may make comments from our channel that may not be all Tesla love, but we really work hard to identify logical cores to how and why and what's occurring, and we maintain that process over time. So I look forward to your comments about this. Constructive criticism, please. I think that, I think there's a lot of Model Y selling there. And for me, the bigger metric than whether the Model 3 has sold less is if in fact and when in fact we see Model Ys being shipped from China to Europe, that's a sign that demand has dried up a bit. And at this point, they were sold out for Q1. I'm told that Model Ys are sold out in China for Q2, and there's nothing going to China. And if anything is going to China, it's Model 3s, or going from China to Europe, it's Model 3s. So it is tough to cover Tesla well because Elon is not transparent in what's going on. But as a result, I think it lends itself to stories like this that I don't think are well researched, and therefore could be harmful, could and are harmful until the real numbers are revealed. At any rate, we'd like to move on to our health tips. Don't forget your 25 leg lifts a day, helping to strengthen quad muscles, limiting the chance of knee issues. Also wanted you to consider a 3-5 or 2-5 or another of the fasting diets as a health method, a bit of heading into nature and doing what's called forest bathing. I think it's a great idea to look up. I've been doing it and I think it's terrific, and I think you'll enjoy the impact of that. Also wanted to encourage you to consider not going to bed within 4 hours of eating, minimum 2 hours to let the food digest fully before it creates other stomach or cancer-related issues. And as our kidney doc pointed out, no more than once a week fried foods. And also a reminder that prior to lovemaking, no more than a light salad will allow more blood flow to other parts of your body to allow you to enjoy those activities more rather than having it just be there digesting your food. So I'm looking forward to what your response is to our conversation. We're also looking forward to figuring out what's next for Tesla. The stock is still down after this downdraft, but many of the companies that got slammed that are high value stocks are starting to come back in the process, and Tesla is on that list. So it's been a wild couple of days, and I think it's going to stay that way. But I think it's somewhat positive to see the stock up nicely above 600 and closing out the day rather than sub 500 where it opened this morning. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Licky Throat, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, Strasvice, Russian, Ni Hao Ma, Chinese, Konbawa, Japanese, G'day, our friends in Australia, Namaste, our friends in India, best luck with the health challenges there. And in Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now. Boom, boom, boom.